Richard Butler of the Psychedelic Furs. This has been pre-recorded, otherwise, obviously, you wouldn't have agreed to do it if you'd been hearing this.
We should say that he's from America. The line is not the best, but...
Richard Butler is a member of the Psychedelic Furs. You know that.
Frontman, yeah. Their new album in nearly 30 years, Made of Rain, is out on the 31st of July. They have been touring more or less constantly, and he's quite a well-known artist as well.
Well, there you go. First, last, everything that we ask someone for their first musical enthusiasm, their most recent, and their all-encompassing and all-consuming favourite. And this morning, Richard Butler of the Psychedelic Furs.
Hi, this is Richard Butler from the Psychedelic Furs, and this is my first, last, and everything. The first record I ever bought, I believe, was She Loves You by the Beatles in 1963. Everything in England in 1963 was all about the Beatles. The time I bought She Loves You, I was 7 years old and living in Surrey, in Horsley, a village called Horsley, and the Beatles were everywhere. I mean, you'd go into the supermarket or like Woolworths, and there'd be plastic Beatle guitars and plastic Beatle wigs and packs of photographs you could buy. The Beatles were all over everything, it seemed, at that time. Even my parents liked them. After I'd bought She Loves You, I think I bought every album that they did after that, right up until 1970, when I think they stopped making records. Yeah, I was a big fan of them and, and a lot of other things, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, but, the Beatles were always pretty high on the list. It must be years and years since I actually heard She Loves You, but I think were I to hear it now, I think it would certainly take me back. It wouldn't probably rate as highly, in my opinion, of it as other songs do or have done since, but certainly for the time it was fantastic.
Not to disagree with Richard, who's our guest, Richard Butler from the Psychedelic Furs, when he said it wouldn't maybe not rate as highly as all of the records now. I don't think pop music gets any better than that.
I mean, 1963, and there have been lots of developments and revolutions in recording. To record two guitars, bass, drums and vocals, and it's never got any better than that.
It's never got any better than that.
It still sounds so exciting, doesn't it? Yeah,
it does. Fantastic record that is.
So thank you for picking that, Richard. Richard Butler of the Psychedelic Furs, as Mr. Maconie said, is our first, last, everything guest today. And here's the last thing he's been getting into.
The most recent record I've been enjoying is Describe by Perfume Genius. I've been a fan of Perfume Genius since he had a song called Queen some years ago, and I really loved that song. And when I heard he'd got a new album out, I went and bought the album. The album's called Set My Heart on Fire Immediately. And the first track I listened to, or heard actually, was Describe. Great song. It's very unusual. I love the distorted guitar. I love the bass note bends, and I love that it's very daring that halfway through it goes into this very melodic, soft, completely unrelated seeming part of the song and goes out like that. I saw Perfume Genius in a town about half an hour north of me, Kingston, and he was playing a small club. I went there with my girlfriend, and it was pretty riveting. He was pretty great and a very daring performer. And I've liked him ever since.
That's terrific, isn't it? Perfume Genius, his new album is fantastic. Set My Heart on Fire Immediately. Richard Butler thinks so as well. It's his most recent enthusiasm. By the way, Perfume Genius recently recorded some live tracks from Mary Ann, and you can get that at BBC Sounds, £5. Search for her show, 15th of July. Richard Butler of the Psychedelic Furs is our first, last, everything guest this morning.
Claire in Warminster very much enjoyed Perfume Genius as well. Yeah, here's Richard's Everything.
My everything song would be Visions of Johanna by Bob Dylan from the album Blonde on Blonde. When I was very young, my father started bringing Bob Dylan albums home. I was probably about 5 when he started bringing Bob Dylan albums home, I suppose. He was a huge fan of him, and it got so... It was kind of a bonding thing I had with my father. He would... bring a Bob Dylan album home and play it, and we'd sit and talk about what the lyrics meant. And with Bob Dylan, his lyrics got increasingly more obtuse and, in a way, more interesting and abstract. And I think, songs like Desolation Row is a great example, as is Visions of Johanna. It became interesting to sit down and listen to them and try and figure out what he was meaning, if anything. And just particularly on Visions of Johanna, the whole mood of the song is somewhat secretive and quiet and mysterious. The tone of his voice even is slightly smoky and rather beautiful. I would say Bob Dylan has been a very big influence on my music. It became almost part of my DNA from listening to him when I was so young and like I said, talking about all the lyrics with people. I actually had a friend's mum type out all the lyrics on a typewriter into a little book that I kept with me. Yeah, he was the first musician, songwriter that came along that wrote things that, seemed to have a deeper meaning than the average pop song. And, since then I've had an ongoing interest in lyrics.
Sorry, Bob's harmonica playing always affects me like that. Visions of Johanna, Bob Dylan, 1966, Blonde on Blonde. The last, the everything, I beg your pardon, chosen by Richard Butler of the Psychedelic Furs.
Who've made their first album in nearly 30 years, Made of Rain, and from it, an interesting title, Come All Ye Faithful, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
His voice is in good fettling.
Yeah,
It's still got that very distinctive rasp to it. So thank you to Richard Butler from Psychedelic First for doing a first, last and everything. Come All Ye Faithful from their new album Made of Rain. They've, like everyone else, had to scrap the tour, but they'll be back in April next year, I think.
Yeah, they will. And next week on the show...